Welcome to episode 3. This is episode 3 of Crazy Beats Big. Crazy Beats Big is basically a series of conversations that we're starting here, sponsored by Rhino. We don't actually say that. I'm just joking. But no, it's actually sponsored by Civil House. We don't say that either. Okay, so I told you I'm terrible at intros. So basically, this idea came to me a while back. Started actually when I was a kid. I was on a school bus where there was a bully who had picked on a kid for a series of time, maybe a few months. I don't really remember, but eventually one day this little kid just snapped and beat the crap out of the bully. And I kind of always took that as a little analogy for life and how sometimes if you get crazy enough, you can do anything you want to do. Because when you're a kid, defeating the bully seems literally impossible. It seems like the difference between David and Goliath. It's kind of that classic story. But for me, it's a nice analogy for entrepreneurship. I think people that are scared or intimidated by something big in their lives will live in fear. And until something happens when they choose to get crazy, and however you think of that, I know that word crazy sometimes feels a little, some people don't like that word, but yeah, it's a little crazy to say crazy. Anyway, so Christina, Marco, you guys, what I know about you is you have a store in Kalamazoo. You have a business that started in Chicago. I will not say anything more about that, but I want to learn from you guys. You're both married. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Correct.
To each other.
To each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Just in case it's not clear.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. That's good intel.
Yes.
So I want to hear you guys' story. Tell me how you first tell me how you met, actually. Just let's start there.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So Marco and I met, we went to University of Michigan, and so we've known each other
We met freshman year of college, probably the first week.
Yeah, so that
we
was
lived in the same dorm.
2012?
2011.
Okay. So we lived in the same dorm. He lived on the guy side. I lived on the girl side. And I kind of thought he was a little weird, to say the least, right? You were very intense. Mm-hmm. Very intense. So we became friends.
What was intense about him?
He was very focused.
I like to give people a background of like how intense he was, because otherwise it's very hard to visualize.
We need that.
He had the same seat in the library every single day. Like he had to sit in that seat because he felt as though he was commanding the intelligence of the library to academic success. So that he
was that
had
a t-shirt that he had. I'm commanding the intelligence.
No, it was.
But he had to enter. So we have this library. Was it Hatcher?
The Harlan Hatcher Graduate Library.
Yeah. So he had, out of respect to library, he could only enter in a certain way and exit out of a different exit. Needless to say, he was extremely intense. Like he felt as though if he didn't get an A+ in every class, like it was a complete failure. So I kind of kept him at a distance a little bit. We were good friends. But we made the ultimate connection when we started talking about our faith. And I just knew out of other people that he was the person that I really wanted to get to know better. And so it was really junior year, we started dating, and it was kind of the rest was history. So
why are you so intense? Or why are you so intense on getting A's? Or, where's that from?
I think part of it is... I really do believe it's two things, right? One is this mindset that I came to this country, right? So I was born in Mexico, came to this country as an immigrant, and just the amount of sacrifices that my parents faced, both my mom and my dad made for me and my brother. It was something that for me this is my way to have a chance, right? To really do something that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. And so obviously we placed an enormous value on education, and coming to University of Michigan from Texas, that was a huge commitment, right? I mean, I went from living in Rockford, Michigan to going to Texas in the middle of junior year, and it went from being an in-school tuition to in-state to out-of-state. And so you're talking about a massive investment into education. And so for me, it was, I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, I'm here to push myself. And so I was just very focused. And the other part of it is I love school. I love learning. I love just having an opportunity to push my own thinking and be pushed by other people. And I just love that part of being in college. I love other things about being in college, but the thing I loved the most was the opportunity to be in such an environment surrounded by the individuals that just wanted to continue to push and learn and grow. It's part of the reason I ended up going to the business school there and going into consulting thereafter.
Very cool. So that's, you got together at U of M.
We got together at U of M.
She went to New York.
I went to New York.
I went to Chicago.
Because I told them, look for a job in Chicago because I'm going to end up in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting my dream job in New York.
Yes.
So I moved to New York. And we did long distance for a little
while.
bit.
And then got married and moved to Chicago, and the rest is history, as she said.
Yeah.
Nice.
Been married for 5 years.
Very cool.
So
how involved are you in the business? Let's talk about the business first.
Yep.
Introduce us to the idea, and then we'll talk about the involvement.
Yeah. So I'd like to introduce you to the store, and then we can kind of, as we talk about our backgrounds a little bit more, we can talk about the website. Yep. But the store, Curate Co, is really, we think about it as more than just a gift store. So it's we carry modern gifting and lifestyle things, but we also are kind of a creative event space. So we want people to feel the instant that they walk into the store, we want them to feel inspired. So whether that's through the things that we carry, the space itself, the vibe, we also want them to feel a little bit edgy and cool at the same time. So the store's been around for 6 months now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you've been in it before. Hopefully you've bought some things for yourself, but it's more likely that it's for your wife.
Yeah.
And I think that's the idea, right? So for people that haven't been into it, you walk in and it's a very millennial pink space, right? I think that's the best way to describe it. You walk in and there's just beautiful and really cool stuff for her, for home, and for baby. And we have, Christina really thought through individual pieces, right? We have a pink couch. We have a pink wall where all the cards are. We have a pink neon sign that says, "You go, girl." We have that partition wall that's golden. So every little piece she thought of and she designed. And so it's amazing to kind of see her idea, her concept in ways that she talked about it in the past. But the way that it actually came together is pretty quite amazing. Just kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think when he says that? I mean, do you think of it that same way that you curated every little detail, or do you think it was all just one giant vision that,
Yeah.
How do you envision what you did?
So for me, I've always wanted a store. So I've kind of been like, in my mind, it's played out in different ways. But I think once we finalized the space itself, it was really cool to be able to be specific about things. And I think the whole idea really came together once we got the neon sign and kind of had like our mantra of sorts. So the idea of "You go, girl," I mean, it kind of like, it's very 90s and whatever. But it's really for us, we want people to feel empowered, and particularly women. Like, you come in and it feels more of like a feminine space, but whether that's through our workshops, that our host feels empowered, that they can teach all of our the people who attend our workshops a new skill, or whether it's through Art Hop and we have somebody come in and showcase their work. We really want it to be a space that you feel inspired, you feel creative, you feel empowered.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So at what point did you know, I mean, with your family background, did you always know you'd start a store of some sort or whatever? I
like to think that. I definitely, you have like, retail is a very interesting industry. You kind of have the bug or you don't. Like, you'll love it or you'll hate it. So my family is in the car business, and they've been going on 4 generations now. So I definitely grew up in the retail environment and knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I would say it really fleshed itself out in college. When I started my first job after graduation, I went into retail buying. And that's where I like really got the bug. I loved it. It was amazing. But I moved to Chicago to be with Marco, and there's a lot more limited options in terms of what's headquartered there. So I went to a company called Paper Source, if you're familiar. It's a gifting paper retailer. They have like, I want to say 100 stores across the U.S. And that's really the love for those sorts of products came alive. And that's what I knew I wanted to focus on. And I remember there was a distinct moment there that I said, 5 years from now, I want to have my own store. And so what are the steps necessary that I need to take in order to have that come to life? And I realized I needed operational knowledge and like on the floor knowledge, because everything else had been more like, corporate ivory tower sort of thing. So I went back to Bloomingdale's in their store management program, was able to manage a couple different businesses in Chicago, and that gave me great experience to feel comfortable and confident with starting our business.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think what's funny is she had two names picked out of what she wanted her businesses to be: Curate and Edit. Right, those were two names that she just loved the idea of what those names meant.
Yep.
Given her background, she was an art history and econ major, and given her love for fashion, Curate and Edit just sort of resonated in her mind. She had no idea what it would be about. She just knew that she would name it Curate or Edit.
Originally, my background is more fashion, so I thought it would be more like clothing, something related to that. But then the instant I started working at Paper Source was like, this is what I want to do.
What's really funny about me and the types of like different industries that you're in, I've been in your store, but if you would have said it's a fashion store, I would think it's a fashion store because it feels fashionable.
It's fashionable.
It feels like they're in the same, like I wouldn't have said it's not a fashion store. I know that you're like, it's not fashion.
Well,
it's paper goods.
We like to carry, I would say, lifestyle, because we're starting to carry more accessories as well.
Yeah.
And we've kind of toyed with the idea of clothing at some point. I don't know. It's an interest. Clothing is kind of its own beast, so we're trying to figure that out. Yeah. But yeah.
So I think the thing that strikes me about your store when I walk in is that it's a type of store that it helps create an identity for the consumer.
Yep.
That walk in, they feel like this store gets me, and I don't know if you get me, but the people that walk in, a lot of people probably feel that way. I bet Walker might think that. I don't know if I don't know. Anyway, so a lot of the ladies at Rhino love it, just so you know. I think you know that. But a lot of the ladies at Rhino love it. I love to just stop in because as someone who's doing business in Kalamazoo and wants really quality things, I got excited, and I think I told you that. I was like, it's really cool that you're here, and whatever I can do to help, I'd love to help because I want to see you succeed. But I think it's one of those stores where you walk in and it feels like a place that the brand of the place I would put, when we were kids, I don't know if you guys are like this, but I used to clip out stuff and put it on my wall. And it wasn't like Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
No way.
That was really, that's what all my girlfriends did in middle school. But
Josh Hartnett.
Oh gosh, Josh Hartnett. I hated that guy. Anyway, but for me, it was always like football clippings and like, random stuff like, I don't know, and like music and Johnny Cash stuff. I put it on my wall. I think about that in our minds. I think that's kind of a kid thing to do, but I think we still do that where we take little pieces of different things we're really into.
Yep.
We clip it up on our mental wall.
I mean, and I think for us, to some extent, like Instagram has sort of is that type of thing, right?
I'm an idiot. You're right.
And I
everything
think
I just said.
No. But I think it's right. I think the way that we sort of thought about the business, right, was what are the things that we want people to do or feel or be able to get out of the experience, right? Because we didn't want it just to be a store, and so there, what I would say, like our three core principles, right, are shop, create, and discover, right? So we want anyone to be able to come into the store to at least get something out of the experience. Even if you don't walk out with something, you're still going to get something out of that experience because you get to discover something you didn't know. You get to create a new emotion. And people just come in and they just take pictures of the store, like you were saying, either on the pink couch or if we have Christina helped design this really cool
we have like a doorstep that says bonjour. And
I love that.
And so it was every little detail. I kid you not, she thought of every little detail to create a space that was truly unique that would help people feel creative, or they would help discover. And so that's
if it makes you feel better about your clippings, I actually did that.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Everyone did.
Yeah. No, I did that for the store.
Oh, nice.
So I created like an inspiration board, mood board for it before we designed everything.
Well, here's what's dumb about what I just said. We do that all the time. I own a media company.
Yeah.
We're constantly doing that.
It's a mood board.
But I think sometimes I don't translate the fact that I did that as a kid into
Like
a
what
very
you do
common
now.
thing to do now in the creative
Yeah.
sphere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, sometimes I say things, and as I say them, I realize that it's a very obvious thing I just said. And I thought it was profound. So
It is profound.
It is.
yeah, whatever.
You just created Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah.
You put it on the line.
It's the start of Instagram.
Right on. Yeah. So very good. Hey, can I have a little more coffee? Let's take a quick. Thanks, Veronica. Veronica's from Kenya.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome.
Are you a student? And where at?
Western Michigan. Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
very, very cool.
Congratulations.
She's a production intern with us, and then I asked her if she wanted to work at the coffee shop because she's got a killer personality.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
Mac hired all the baristas, and I liked them all, but I was like, I kind of envisioned this shop as being a place where we could, if we had an intern who was just really good or
Yeah.
really personable, it'd be great if we could like have him work the shop a little bit and just be around a little more often, and just people would kind of hand select, go like,
Yeah.
hey, would you want to learn this new skill and all that, and so. Veronica's been great, and so she's all of a sudden she's getting really good at latte art and stuff, and she's
Awesome.
helping work with Dano out on this podcast and the Rhino YouTube show.
That's
and stuff.
great.
So
I mean, I think those types of jobs are so important, right? Especially early on, right? The service industry, just being able to learn how to work with people, it's transformational, right? Because sometimes you just get so worried in college of going into, this job or that job, but you forget that at the end of the day, business and anything really is just a one-on-one interaction. And if you can't have and understand how to bring the magic to that one-on-one interaction, it's all going to fall apart.
dude, that's really good.
Do you want me to? Should I say that again?
The magic.
Well, we're rolling still, so I know it's a little interrupted, but we do have it. But I think that's a thing for me that I get really excited to talk about because people either kind of get it or they don't. And sometimes they walk in the door at Rhino and they expect a lot, but don't expect to give a lot. Or, frankly, they don't. That's for an interview. They don't get to come in with that kind of attitude. But I think it'd be so critical to so many students' success if they knew what you just said.
Yeah.
Why do you think kids don't get that?
I think part of it is how we have ended up defining success, right? And I would say I'm a huge, hypocrite when it comes to this. And I would say, you as well, at least earlier in our life. When you go to school and when you kind of get into this
Competitive environment. I think adds to it.
the early 20s are all about credentialing, right?
Yeah.
It's all about getting the next thing. And so that's how we define success, right? And so when you define success in that sort of materialistic way, you end up putting as the number one thing, how much am I going to get paid? What's my title and where am I working? And then it just becomes about continuing to move upwards in your own little world, if you will. And you forget, what we talked about, which is the power of just really being with someone, the power of that one-on-one interaction. And I think that's what happens a lot in businesses. You get so disconnected as a manager or as a leader, as an executive from the front line. And if you don't have a connection to the front line, how are you expected to actually be able to deliver on your customers' needs, right? And you can have consultants do the analysis for you and get them to tell you what it is. But if you as an owner and you as an entrepreneur, we've lived this, don't understand what people really want and what they need, then you're just going to be selling them anything, and it's not going to have heart and soul in what you do. So I don't know. I think part of it is realizing that business is not just about making money. It's about making this world better and making connections with people and having an avenue or a way to be able to sort of show your charism, right? Your God-given talent to people, and hopefully they like it. And if they don't, that's too bad because it's what the talent that God gave you.
I know. I listen to this inspirational talks every day.
That's everything I believe, and if I would add anything to it, I would, but I don't. So,
and I think Kevin, you asked earlier, what's my role in this business? And obviously, I think you see when we work together well, it's when I create the space for her to be able to just roam free. Right? She has such an incredible creative mind, whether it's related to design, whether it's related to buying, merchandising, marketing. Leading people, managing a team, those are all her core skills. And so what I have seen my role in this business is to help shape the identity of this thing. Just ask her the questions and push her, right? Like that's
Which
been,
can be.
it's been hard.
It's been hard for sure.
But
I have a question.
Yes.
When you say it's been hard, I'm reading between the lines. Do you ever feel, and as real as you want to be, do you ever feel like he is too much of a coach all the time to you? Because that's what my wife says about me, and it drives her nuts.
Yes, I think that's part of it. We've struggled a lot. So we've been doing this for 3 years, and a professional and very personal relationship, finding the balance between that. And when we work together, great, it's amazing. But there's also, those obstacles of he'll be telling me something and I'll be like, well, I have a lot on my plate. Can you just help me with that? I need you to tactically do that instead of theoretically create this space for all of this.
I need you to call these customers that are pissed about their
which I do. I mean, I work the store, right? I mean, I think part of it is it's a give and take for both of us, right? Because I really do believe this is her dream, right? And so my role as her husband is to help her be able to fulfill her dream, and that's both helping bring sort of like the more business strategy mind to kind of help shape this thing, but also help push, the day-to-day thinking. Like I help her with, the cash flow models. I help her with, when we go to shows in New York, I help more on the like tactical, like, strategy and operations things, and let her run more of the day-to-day. But there are things of the business that I take on, right? So the accounting stuff, I try to help as much as I can with that.
I hate that stuff. I absolutely least favorite thing to work on.
The cash flow stuff, I try to help with that. And I think part of it is, for me, given that I obviously have a full-time job and I kind of have to, this is the role that we've decided to play. It's pushed me to be more mindful, to really figure out, okay, you're not just telling me this because you don't want to do it. You're telling me this because you don't know how to do it. And it takes time. It's taken me 3 years to get to that point of realization.
I think a lot of communication has gotten us to a better place for sure. Because there's misread signals, I'll bring something up because I'm anxious about it and I want his help, not just because I'm telling him just to tell him. Yeah. And so we've kind of worked through a lot of those things. But
and it's kind of cool to think that your marriage has gotten stronger through a business, but it really has, right? I think it's pushed us to be so much more open about what we want out of our lives, out of our marriage, out of each other. And I think it's forced us to make really hard decisions, I would say, right? I think last year we were trying to decide, if we were going to open this thing, right? We were doing an online shop and corporate gifting. And I started asking Christina, what do you want to do, right? Do you want this to just be a thing you do online and kind of do it on the side? And if so, maybe we take a break. Let's go abroad for a year because that's what everybody's doing these days. And let's just live abroad for 12 months. Let's go to Berlin. We loved Berlin, went on a trip. Let's just go do that. I need a break from work. You need a break from work. Let's just go do something different. And so that idea was in the back of our minds. We were toying with that. And then as through our conversations, we realized that what she really wanted was an actual physical store. And so we started creating pop-up shops. We did some in Chicago. We did a few in Kalamazoo. And then after the one in May last year of Mother's Day, I remember sitting actually in the same space. It was the same space where we did the pop-up shops.
We were sitting on the floor.
Sitting on the floor, getting everything picked up because we needed to drive it back in a U-Haul to Chicago. And we did this, multiple times. It was driving stuff to her parents' house, which they're very glad that all this stuff is out, and driving stuff into our apartment. And I remember sitting on the floor with Michelle, her sister, and Kelsey, one of their friends. And I think someone just asked or said, it's a shame that we have to pack this up. It's a shame that we can't just come back next week.
Did they say a damn shame or just a shame?
Let's assume that they said it's a damn shame,
okay.
right? Just I think Michelle would have said that. That's probably
such a different tone, but okay.
Yeah. And so that really stuck with us, right? We were just like, you know what? It is kind of a shame. Not only is it a pain to have to lug all this stuff around, but that weekend it was just awesome.
It was
awesome. It was May pop-up, May Art Hop. And it was just crazy. And the support and we just saw something. And so that summer we we just said, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to leave Chicago? Are we going to go abroad? Am I going to leave my job? What are we going to do? And I asked Christina, I was like, so what do you want to do? And she had a very philosophical and very insightful answer.
I told him, we're going big or going home. And so then Marco is like, he's like, well, now you get the opportunity to go big and go home.
Yes.
He thought that was like so insightful.
So that's how it started.
Yeah. That's how
wonderful.
the store started.
Nice. I want to actually talk just for a second. I want to talk just a little bit more because I think when we talk about the store and the business, that's really good on one track. And I also like just hearing like backstory, like philosophical things. We start talking about college and students' perspective on how business works and things. But I want to get a little bit more perspective on Marco from you.
Yeah.
What do you feel like as an immigrant from Mexico that standard American people your age don't have? And then I want to hear your perspective too on how that relates to you being a Midwest kid, because I'm a Midwest kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys are like this at all, but I feel like I have a little bit of that. Sometimes I get frustrated because the Midwest is disregarded by the coast of the country a little bit. I'm not trying to be political about it, but I do feel like the Midwest doesn't get a lot of respect. And I understand, I get that the tastemakers are on the East and the West Coast and yada, yada, yada. But, sorry, disregard that.
Yep.
Tell me about what you have in your back pocket as an immigrant to America and like maybe what your perspective is. It might be a little bit different.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would say there's two things, right? I think the first one isn't necessarily related to being an immigrant. I really do believe the single biggest thing that has helped me throughout my life, through all the moves, through all the challenges, has been my faith, right? And that's something that my parents instilled with me very, very early on. And I think that perspective of understanding that there's something so much deeper and so much more important than anything happening on this world just changes everything, right? And so have I always been perfect? No, absolutely not. Have I, sort of swayed too far? Yes, at times I have. But I've always had that grounding and that core foundation of what really matters and what my purpose is. And I've been obsessed with that idea of what's my purpose, what's my legacy, what am I really here for? And I think realizing that there's something higher, that God exists, and everything that comes with a deep faith, just changes everything. So I think that's one perspective, especially in this day and age, that I really do think helps tremendously. But if I relate it to the immigrant side, and I see this a lot with my friends that came from other countries, whether through business school or an undergrad, there's a real, how do I think about this? There's just an element of curiosity, right? Genuine curiosity, because everything's so new, right? I think if I had...
I think appreciation.
Yeah, I would say, curiosity and appreciation, right? I think everything that has happened for me in the last 15 years is all new, right?
Yeah.
And I talked to my dad about, opportunities and jobs, and he was like, that's like kind of where I was at when I first came to this country. And I was like, yeah, well, you were like 45, and I'm not even 25, right? And so some of it is just this appreciation for everything that happened before me. And
How old are you?
I'm almost 30.
Okay. I'll say you're not
No.
25.
This was 5 years
see,
saying.
okay.
I'm trying to make myself sound younger. No. Imagine me as a 25-year-old.
25.
I was like, wow, man, you're really wise for 24.
Well, she will tell you I've always been this kind of crazy. But I really do think it's that, right? I think there's an appreciation that nothing has ever been given to me, right? And I have had to work and earn everything. But I think in the context is it's all because of what God wants for me, right? I'm just following God's plan, but I'm still having to work for it, right? And so that's, I think, the interplay is I have just an understanding of why things happen, but also a desire that I actually have to do something. I have to step in order for God to kind of work.
Yeah. How do I follow that up?
Well, I think the idea of having purpose is really big for me too.
Yes.
And honestly, if I could say one thing that I want everyone in the world to know is that, what's tough for me, I think at times is I've tried to very much be careful about how I communicate my faith, I always talk about how Rhino is very non-political. We work with clients that are very left-leaning. We work with clients that are very right-leaning, or whatever, all through the spectrum. And I try to just keep my faith out of conversations the best I can. I think because early on I just established this, it's probably best if I don't lead with that. I don't know if you have that experience
of course,
too, but and obviously when the time is right, I'm happy to talk about it. But I feel like so many conversations I have are engineered that I've gotten. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but I actually kind of struggle to communicate some deeply held beliefs I have, and keeping that out of it almost doesn't make sense. So when you spot another person who maybe has the same fundamental framework for how life works and what's important and what's not important. So I definitely picked up on that. But if I could, so all that to say, if I could infuse one bit of information to anyone who's listening, I always think, I want you to understand that life's way more important than just what gives you immediate satisfaction.
Yes, absolutely.
Having a mission, having a purpose, and making the community around you better. Firstly, with your spouse or partner, then your extended family, then your friends, and what can you do to make that ripple effect greater and make everyone's lives better through your work? And I guess for me, it's hard to do that without a framework of. Sometimes it feels empty when people talk about it, but obviously that's a framework. It's a Christian perspective.
But and I actually think, just to that point, going back to my point about success, right? Like for both of us, I think we were very blessed at a very early age to be in these opportunities that we thought this is our dream, right?
Yeah.
And obviously it's what, Christina went to Bloomingdale's out of college in New York City, right? That was like what she always thought she wanted to do. For me, I went to Michigan. I went to Boston Consulting Group, which is one of the top management consulting firms in the world. And I got to work with executives when I was 20, right? I got to work on really, really cool and important stuff.
That's crazy.
Then I went to Kellogg and went back to BCG. And for me, like I was at the mountaintop, right? And she was as well. But I think we realized that for us, the trade-offs that it would take, right? And I think that's another important thing for as furthering the conversation. Life's all about trade-offs, right? And the trade-offs that you have to make based on professional decisions or personal decisions, everyone gets to make those, right? And every person gets to choose whichever way they want to look at the world, but not everybody has to realize that every person has to make trade-offs, right? And so for us, we realized that the trade-off we wanted to make was don't follow the money, right? Because we could have very easily gone and done things in New York or San Francisco or wherever and just chased money. But we knew we weren't going to be happy. We knew that deep down.
Yeah. There was like a distinct moment this past summer when Marco was still working in his not current job, but when he was still doing consulting. And he was traveling probably Sunday night through Thursday, working from like 7 a.m. till midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning. And we had only like connected for 10 minutes in a week. And I just remember we went to a service and he was just crying. And I remember thinking like, what is this? What does this serve us? Like, this is not worth it. And we really had those conversations of, what do we want out of life? Like, is this worth it?
That was Teenage Priest, right?
Yeah.
It's a massive out in St. Joseph, and I really don't.
So Marco's Catholic and I'm Protestant. We go to mass and church together, but we went to the specific mass, and the service, the service itself was talking about stepping out in the water, stepping out in faith, and that's kind of been our thing with entrepreneurship, and also with him making this transition with his job. And we laugh because the priest who was giving the homily looked like he was 15. And so we called him, like, we secretly call him Teenage Priest. We're like, oh yeah, Teenage Priest was like dropping some knowledge on us, and like.
Yeah, but I love the name Crazy Beats Big because you have to be crazy to jump out in faith and do something like what we're doing here, right? And every decision is an opportunity to be a little bit crazy. And I think that's what we realized is we would much rather We would much rather look back on our lives and tell our kids and our grandchildren, if we're lucky enough to make it that far, that we decided to do something that we felt so compelled and so passionate about, as opposed to something that the world was telling us to do. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm so excited for the shop and the store, especially in Kalamazoo. It's just such a cool place, and we're so lucky to have met so many wonderful people through this. Our team is amazing.
Our team's amazing. I'm so lucky.
And it's not just that they're great with customers; is they are creating, their own stories within the shop. And they feel like they have full control and full ownership over this vision, and that's what more could you ask for?
Okay, so I want to talk about this. Here's something I want to kind of connect. We'll go back in the store a little bit. So I think for me, and I actually have a hard time identifying this because I went to business school at Western, but I wasn't a terrible student. I was not a very ambitious student. I was not motivated to do any extracurriculars. I was just kind of like, get me out of here. I want to go start a business or something. And not coincidentally, I struggled for 4 years after college. So, So for me, I think retail is something that I've always kind of intuitively understood as a consumer, because everyone shops and it's just kind of what we do here in America and well, everywhere. But I think it's a thing that it reminds me of one of those things that like everyone kind of thinks they have an idea for an app because we all use apps and we think we know how to do
totally.
it. Until you start trying to make one.
Yeah.
You start trying to make one, you realize it's really hard. And I can make an app. I can start a store. It's just everyone thinks they can kind of do it.
Yeah.
So what I think what's interesting about what you're saying that I want people to understand, and I don't think I can articulate. I want to hear your guys' perspective on this, but you have a store, and I think to someone who's like 40 and up, who doesn't live in this world, who doesn't live in the business development world or entrepreneurial world, they might just think, well, that store makes money by selling products when people walk in the door, and it's a very transactional relationship where what seems to me that you're making is much more of that identity, that kind of place. There are little things where you can take a photo on Instagram, very intentionally curated things. What are you doing different that makes it more than, I know it's a lame way to say it, more than just a retail store?
So Marco really pushed me as we were thinking about this store to definitely kind of create this whole concept that was more than. And so that's where like the whole creative events thing comes in. So retail itself is a very seasonal business, as you can imagine. So December is an amazing month, and then January and February hits and it's like freezing here.
Yeah.
And no one wants to go outside. No one really wants to shop because they just ate so much, over the holidays.
They had too much Taco Bell.
And there's 12 inches of snow everywhere.
So, and there's a lot of snow in Michigan. So for us, we really had to think about what's going to bring people in the store other than just like an item that you could also buy anywhere else online. Like how are we going to differentiate ourselves and really think outside of the box? And so what we did is we created this kind of creative event schedule that would bring people in on a random Tuesday, in January when it's cold outside and people otherwise wouldn't necessarily go out. And by default, they're in the shop and maybe they'll also shop too. So we every month host creative workshops in the space. The next one that we have is paper flowers. And so we have a host coming in from Brooklyn, one of my good friends, and she's was a crafter at Renegade Craft, if you've heard of it. It's like a big craft fair. And she's going to teach how to make beautiful paper flowers. But we've done calligraphy, all sorts of different things just to get people involved, get them out there to do stuff, to create things, to be inspired, to think about retail in a dynamic way. Because I come from big box retail, which really hasn't changed since like the 80s. And so they really haven't adapted their model yet. And it's so important in this day and age, especially in the last 5 years when retail has really been changing a lot. And when you're not making your own products, to really think about things differently.
I think the biggest thing, right, is online retail has changed the game, right? And so that's why you see so many retailers just start to cave in, and the death of brick and mortar is a real thing. And so we wanted to do something. We started online, but we realized like it's just so impersonal, right? And that was the coolest thing is when we were doing the pop-up shops, just to actually see like a sneak into her brain. It's pretty cool, right? Like she has great ideas, but actually being able to see it laid out is just so beautiful. And just seeing the interaction with the way she interacts with customers and with people and tells the story, it just makes it so much realer, and it's just so much more fun that way.
Well, and it's also interesting to see what your customers gravitate towards, because you don't get that full interaction online. You're able to look at the analytics and all that stuff behind the scenes, but you aren't able to see the tangible experience of somebody picks up a product and they're able to see the little details of it. Whereas online, you don't get that full.
Right. And you could probably just even like reading their nonverbals or how long they held it in their hand, things like that, or if they smiled when they looked at it. It's tough to, I'm sure at some point
it's all
we'll have
part of
some
it.
sort of AI, but
it is. Well, that would be pretty cool to have all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's what's cool about brick and mortar is it sort of goes against anything anyone would ever tell you about retail at the moment in time, but it's really not, right? Because you look at some of the more dynamic online, what are they called? Online native businesses, right? Warby Parker, Bonobos, all of these businesses that started online, but they go offline to be close to the customer to give a different experience. And I think for us, we would much prefer to give people an experience than just a transaction, right? At some point, this business will disappear, right? Because every business disappears. Maybe it's, in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 100 years, whatever. We'd much rather be remembered as a place that you went and felt inspired or moved than in a place where you just went and bought, a card or a candle.
Yeah, because it's right now, like you said, the retail industry and the brick and mortar industry, everyone is probably who aren't in this world probably look at it as an opportunity of where everyone's running out of it, and you guys are running into it.
That's right.
But that's interesting that you mentioned Warby Parker and Bonobos because it's almost like you can still do the retail thing. You just have to understand that it needs to be an experience. It needs to feel like a part of my life, and it needs to give me a reason to come out and learn a new skill or connect with other human beings. That's one of my biggest things about, especially you guys probably look at Kalamazoo as a small town at this point, I would say.
I would, as her dad would say, this is a great small city.
My dad.
It's not a town, it's a city.
My dad. Any new person that we bring, any of our friends that if he comes to Chicago or if we bring them here, he's like, so tell me what you love about our city. Like that's the first thing. In
my mind, it's a city. But relatively speaking, yes.
Well, I grew up in a very small town, and it is very much a town. And so for me, I've watched it kind of slowly lose population and slowly, there's really no viable businesses in the town. That's not sorry. There's not no viable businesses. I realize sometimes I say things off, and then it's on camera. So I got to be careful. So I apologize. To the town of Hartford. So,
Hartford,
Connecticut?
Yeah. No, here.
No, very different. I'm from Hartford, and so I've often over the last probably since I graduated high school just watched business after business close down. And there's a few new things starting, but it seems really tough. But people don't interact with the same things they used to interact with. You used to be able to you used to have a reason to go to the doctor and go to the local church and go to the store. And now there's so many reasons not to, that if people don't understand what you guys understand and make businesses that create an experience and create a feeling and a place to identify with, that it's all transactional. I can get the same thing on Amazon.
Yep.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're kind of trying to do with Civil House as well.
Yeah.
I think we're still trying to figure it out a little bit, and we're, kind of just getting out of the gate, but I very much connect with that. And I that's the thing, anyone starting a business, I wish that they would understand that the human interaction and the human experience and how you make people feel is so critical to it. Yes. And the part that you mentioned, Christina, about creating an event, almost like I think you said create an event strategy, or an event schedule, and then behind that, what's the strategy behind this? Really key. And I've been thinking about that for our business with Civil House, because I wanted Civil House to have the opportunity to lead some conversation around how to be civil to each other and how to have conversations.
Yeah.
So we want to have some speakers come in and like do special events here like that,
Yeah.
or a lot of different things kind of around that. And I'm still working through
Coffee chats, fireside chats of being civil.
Yeah, really. And so that's like kind of next phase for
Yeah.
us. So I'm very inspired.
No,
by
that's
that.
great. I mean, and I think one of the ways that we think about it is the why matters most, the how matters second most, and then the what matters third most, right? So if you start with the why, you go to the how, then you go to the what. That's how you have to think about it.
Nope. Simon Sinek. How many books a week do you read?
I try to read
What's
a
on your
book a month.
you have a list.
A book a month?
Yeah.
That's it? I figured you were like one a week. at
No,
least.
no, I'm not. I really hate reading.
But he loves business books.
I'm
so
not
yeah,
I've
that's
never.
all.
The only things I read growing up was Harry Potter and Holes. They're just things
And
that
what?
And Holes.
You know that
Holes?
book Holes?
I know the movie Holes.
Yeah.
I know
Oh,
The
the
Shy-
the book Holes is amazing. It was
Okay.
like the first book I could actually read in English. So for me, it was really
special.
Yeah,
Okay.
cute, huh?
Did you go to the Shia LaBeouf movie?
I did. I love Shia LaBeouf. I think I try to. I actually what I do when I read is I catalog the books that I have read. So I have a little notebook of all the books I've read, and I actually take notes as I read.
Yep.
That's the only way that I ever found that I could learn.
Yep.
I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I have to actually be doing something while I read. Otherwise, it just sort of disappears.
Yeah. I'm the same way. So who are some of your favorite authors that you kind of mentioned? Well, you didn't mention Simon Sinek, but I feel like you're pulling from Simon Sinek pretty heavy there.
Yeah.
Who else do you like?
I don't have authors that I necessarily like.
What
follow,
books do you like?
But so books that I've loved reading. I love the book. She's gonna laugh. I know she's
Onward.
gonna laugh.
Holes.
Onward
Yeah,
by Howard
Onward.
Schultz. I
Loves
don't know if
that
you've read
book.
that book.
I haven't read it, but I'm
Amazing.
You
so
should read it,
Now that
'cause
you're
it start-
now
yeah.
that you're a coffee shop guy, you have to read this book.
familiar.
So
Howard Schultz.
it's the book that he wrote because for a couple of reasons, right? He talks about why he started Starbucks, right? And it all goes down to this idea of a romantic experience with coffee, right? That before Starbucks was a thing, it used to just be, you take your cup of coffee, you put it in the grinder, you put the beans, and then it just sort of makes it. It's very transactional. He went to Italy, sat at a cafe, and just saw this incredible romantic experience, and he said, "This is what we need to do." And he started small, and Starbucks, a little bit lost its way, but they're starting to gain it back. And so the whole book is about how he came back after he left and sort of reinvigorated the company. So that was a cool book. What else did I
Deep
read?
Change.
Oh yeah,
Good
Deep
story.
Change is a good
Deep
book.
Change you love.
It's a professor at University of Michigan talks about how you actually create change. This all starts from within, and then you actually go outwardly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I want to go a little bit like speed round through
Yes.
a few quick questions. We don't have to go
Let's
like
do it.
crazy fast, but like
Yeah.
not one word answers. But
Let's do it.
Okay.
so I want to know what your insecurities are, if you have any. Do you have any? We all
Yeah.
have some. Are you comfortable talking about it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you mine.
Okay.
No.
You go first. And then
Okay. So for me, my insecurities are growing up in a small town. I have this kind of like redneck complex that I get intimidated in some circles. Like, frankly, your family would intimidate me a lot probably a few years ago, probably before Rhino. They're all nice people, I'm sure. But I'm just saying, like,
They're super chill.
yeah, no. But,
Yeah.
but
They're
it
from
doesn't-
a big town called Kalamazoo.
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I just grew up kind of rural, and I think there's still this like Midwest and actually a book that I've recently been reading called Hillbilly Elegy. You guys familiar with that?
I've heard of it. Oh, I heard about it on NPR actually.
Awesome book.
Okay.
That book really helped me kind of unpack some of my insecurities around just the idea of like growing up kind of poor in the Midwest, and getting into certain circles and not feeling like everyone's better than me. And I would say it's not one of those things that's actively front, present, conscious in my mind, but it's just one of those deeply hidden kind of things. And it's good because it drives me. But it is, I would say, an underlying insecurity. Also, I get super insecure when I start gaining a bunch of weight, which has been crazy because this last fall, we bought a new house and I was like basically eating fast food every day after I'd lost like 30 pounds. So I put it all back on and I was really pissed about that. So starting today, no. But yeah, last year I quit drinking any sort of alcohol. I was like working out pretty consistently, and I dropped like 30 some pounds. It was feeling great.
That's great.
Yeah, and then now I'm back to where I was.
Are you drinking alcohol again?
Yeah. I gotta take.
We only have one life, right? Like there's only,
That's what you say every time
YOLO.
you get a burger.
Yeah.
I eat a burger a week.
Yeah.
Well, I think I am. I get stressed out and I eat whatever I feel like. Even if you've been sitting at your desk all day, you feel like, I deserve something tasty or whatever. So,
I get that.
Yeah, I would say that's a couple of my insecurities, and I'm sure there's like 10 more I could get into, but I want to hear yours.
So I would say my biggest one is where I put my identity. So for the longest time, like when I first took my job after college, my identity was I always wanted to go to like New York City and have that job and like, live that life that I always thought I wanted. And I think that stems in like people's approval too. Like if I get that, people will think I'm cool, sort of, like so stupid. Yep. And so that's my biggest one. And I've really kind of, it's a constant struggle, but I think when Marco and I made those conscious choices of like, let go of that life and where your identity is still seated in, that's not the right place. You kind of have to move from that and like really figure out what your core is and where that is, and who you place your approval in. And so that's my biggest one. I definitely struggle with anxiety. Anxiety is like huge, like, it's not fun. So I would say those are like my biggest weaknesses. But again, like the anxiety thing also like helps me work better because I'm super type A and like stress motivates me.
Yeah.
But it's also,
Well, we'll get to your motivators in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any insecurities?
I do a lot. I think the biggest one is this idea that I think comes out of having moved so much and starting over so much. Is this idea, will people like me? Right. I think it kind of goes back to this identity piece. I think for me, it's always been, I just want to belong. Right. And I feel like I moved so much. People ask me, where are you from? I don't know. I don't have an answer. And that sort of makes me feel like I'm not part of something. And is this idea of like, well, what do I belong to? Who likes me? I know people like me, but it's this idea of, will people like being around me? Will they want to be my friend? That's a big insecurity.
I want to be your friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Still insecurity.
Yeah.
And I think the second one is, it goes back to Christina's first point about identity. I think mine manifests itself more in pride. I think I take great pride in the things that I do and I accomplish because I worked hard. And so it's this idea of like, I worked for this, therefore I should be prideful about what I did. But that can be really bad because then you start putting yourself at the center of things and it's really not about you. So that's definitely something I struggle with is the idea of, will people like me? Will I belong? And this idea of pride, which I think manifests itself in this whole thing around, will people think my work is good enough? And if they think my work is good enough, therefore I am good enough, right? And so I think that's something that I've struggled with, for a long time. And that's why I wanted to get good grades. That's why I wanted to get a good job. Why I wanted to do all these things. But then when you start realizing that it's just, we're just humans and we all have these insecurities, doesn't change it.
Yeah.
Still there, but at least you kind of have some hope for overcoming it someday.
Nice.
And if not, then it's fine.
Next question. What's the worst job you ever had?
You can start, Marco. I'm trying to.
When I was my first job, it wasn't the worst job. I don't think I had a terrible job. I was really lucky. I worked at Meijer when I was a sophomore in high school, and I was what they call a utility player. Right. And so I was a cart wrangler. So it was awesome. I once put like 25 carts and I put them through the parking lot and I got yelled at for doing that.
Because that was too many carts?
Yeah, because it's apparently unsafe and it's a huge liability. And I was like, I guess. Oh, well.
What's the appropriate number of carts?
Like 10. Oh. So I doubled, right? It's so much more efficient that way.
2.5 X.
I used to go around the store with a little tennis ball and a stick, like cleaning up all those skid marks. Make a lot of... No, it's like you would go around awesome. Cleaning toilets.
Yep.
That was fun.
At Meijer.
At Meijer.
Yeah.
I've seen some bad toilets.
yeah.
Wow.
and cleaning the employee lounge as well. And I had to. There was a smoking lounge inside the store. And
Really?
that was the worst because just the smell of smoke, cigarettes, just like I don't know, for some reason, just doesn't sit well with me. And so I have to go in and clean like the lounge and all of the ashes and all that stuff. I don't know. I mean, it was a fun job. I got to see my friends a lot. They would come and say hi, and I'd see parents and all that stuff. But
so
the first job.
It's pretty cool to think that a young kid cleaning crap out of a toilet could go to become a consultant at one of the biggest consultancy firms in the U.S., I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea that might be your path at the time?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, I mean, no.
I wanted you to say no.
See, there's that pride coming back.
No, I knew I was going to.
No, but I think part of it is like you see this path of if you work hard and you study hard, things will materialize. Did I know I was going to work for BCG? No, absolutely not.
But some people don't realize that. Some people don't think that. They don't see the path.
Well, what I'll say is this. So, did I know I was going to go to BCG? No, absolutely not. I didn't even know BCG existed, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to go do something with my life, and I wanted it to have meaning, and I wanted to have impact. And I knew that's where you start, right? You have to. You're not going to start going to go to work at Wall Street or go work in at New York. That's not how it happens. Yeah. You have to learn what work is, and the only way that you learn what work is if you do these types of jobs, right? That I was a busboy at Rio Mambo Tex-Mex y Más. It was great because I was bilingual and
nice.
I love people. I was a waiter and people would tell me, he's like, oh, you speak Spanish really well for a white boy. And I'm like, well, I'm actually Mexican, but thank you. But that's how you start. You got to start somewhere.
That's cool. Worst job?
Worst job was just because of my mental space. So when I left New York and went to Chicago, I was like really not ready for that transition. Yeah. And I think anxiety totally took over and I hated that job. I just was not in a good space.
What was the job?
It was just a buying job and it just wasn't good. And I think I was also going from a very structured environment to more of like a startup-y kind of environment. Okay. And with my type A personality, I freaked out. Like I just could not handle everything was in the air and like I didn't have a set path and like know exactly what my role was and defining that, which is funny now because we're an entrepreneur and like we're studying the things, but I think I just really strive for control. So being in that environment where I also couldn't set the boundaries was very strange for me.
Nice. So what motivates you now? What are you motivated by? Whoever counts to start. How about this? If you need a thought starter, some days as an entrepreneur, some days I feel like I've went through cycles of high levels of excitement, high levels of energy, and then I'll maybe get a day or two where I'm just kind of, it's gone and I'm very almost depressed. And so for me, I've kind of gotten familiar with this phrase, when excitement wears off, responsibility kicks in for me. So there's this undergirding of I do this because it's good for my family in the long term, and it's creating more opportunities and a strong foundation for our family and doing good things and all that stuff. But I'm motivated, I think, by my energy, and a lot comes from wanting to create as much positive good as I can and create as many meaningful jobs for people. And honestly, I think like it sounds kind of, I've actually recently started to uncover this and unpack this myself, but I get really motivated by the idea that when I lead well, that it makes stronger families. Yep. People who have good jobs have more dignity and they'll feel more respected and they'll treat their kids better and all that. And the family is so critical. And I think if I can impact a big cluster of people in Kalamazoo by my work, Kalamazoo and the family structure benefits. So that's kind of like a thing I'm discovering.
That's great.
Recently.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds like you have a purpose-driven life, right? You have a purpose at its core that is manifesting itself. Oh, I haven't read the book. I know it's a title, but you have a purpose, right? That's manifesting itself in a very unique and special way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that life isn't hard.
Yeah.
But I think you sort of have this thing that will help you keep, motivated. That's great.
I think for me, I'm motivated when people are able to experience what we've created in the way that it was meant to be, if that makes sense. So like when I see people walk in and they're excited and happy and like I can see their eyes light up and I can just see that like this is a moment out of their day that they're really going to enjoy. I love, love, love that feeling. Like that's what really like makes it all worth it for me. So that could be like in the store, it could be on Instagram where somebody, sends me like a DM and is like, this was awesome. I went here and I loved it. Or you guys made, like with our corporate clients where they say to us, you made this person feel really, really special. And I just love that about our business. I love that about gifting in general. It's all about making somebody like feel known and feel appreciated. So that's probably mine. What makes me do what I do.
And I think what motivates me is just it comes down to the desire to be able to do something, right? And I think it's just every day is an opportunity to do something. Some days you are more excited about it than others, but I don't know. It just feels like we've been so blessed that not doing something with our lives would just be a waste of time here for us and for the people around us. So this idea that I get to do something awesome every day just gets me up at night.
Nice.
In the morning.
Yeah, but
Keeps me up at night.
No,
up in the morning.
None of that stuff.
For sure. And then last question I want to ask with regards to my little quick questions is, are you guys, do you have daily disciplines that you think are really critical to success in the form of habits that you do, whether it's getting up at the same time every day, working out, eating the right breakfast, reading, whatever, like what are some of those daily things you do? Sing,
He's laughing
police.
at me because I'm not a morning person.
Oh, okay.
So like being here at 8 a.m., I thought I would like die actually. So he's laughing about that. So it's
also
definitely
7.
not.
Yeah, you were up first, right?
Yes, I was up first.
Right.
Yeah.
Talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
You're sleeping in.
I was.
He was sleeping in. So it's definitely not like a specific time that we wake up.
What do you do specifically though that helps you? Because you do things.
Yeah, what things do you do?
I
you
like
successful.
having a calm morning. So like I have my just like morning routine. Like I make breakfast for myself every morning, have a cup of coffee, like really kind of take in the morning, give myself an hour, read a little bit sometimes. That's just like kind of having a calm start to the day instead of like rushing right into it. I feel like that's kind of been key to me.
She also has this very detailed to-do list.
Oh yeah, I do have I have to write everything out, but I've
On a
switched.
physical piece of paper.
Well, I did that and now I've switched to Evernote.
I've been using Evernote for like 10 years. It's
Okay,
crazy.
Yeah. So now I can have specific notes for like specific. So I have like 5 different notes.
Can I give you a tip on
Yeah.
Evernote? Don't let it get out of control because my Evernote is a rat's nest of thoughts.
Mine was like that, and I just cleaned it up yesterday, and it made me feel so good. Like I bulleted things under other bullets, and it made me. I don't get the same satisfaction because I can't cross things off.
Yeah, you can create little check boxes, which is kind of nice. But if I go back to
Erasing is pretty great, like
My f-
erasing things off of my list.
my first note in Evernote is
type
from
A
January
people.
6, 2012. So it's cool because you start
pulling
up all this information you have from. It's nice over time. It's
Yeah.
like best time to plant a tree was
I mean,
a
I
long
think
time ago.
in my ideal state, I wake up in the morning and I have my detailed checklist that I wrote the day before, and I kind of do. But the thing that I like to do, that I do consistently is every night before I go to bed, I try to just take 10, 15 minutes and just reflect on the day, right? And I ask myself 3 questions that are, it's called Ignatian Spirituality, right? It's St. Ignatius of Loyola, the Jesuits, they kind of did this. They would ask themselves 3 questions. One is, what was good about my day, right? And you kind of reflect, you write it down, what was good about my day. And the idea is that you see God in those moments. Number 2 is, what were the challenges of the day, right? So it's what worked and what didn't, right? So you kind of get a sense of, okay, how did they go? And the third question is, where did you fall short? Right? And so it's not just the challenges, but where were there opportunities that you could have done more and you didn't? Or where were the things that you reacted in a way that you shouldn't have? And then the last one is just hey, remember that every day is a gift. And so just those 3 simple questions. I try to do it consistently. Not every night do I do it, but it's just what I try to just remember. Every day is a gift. So
That's really cool. I like that. I think one of the things I've realized about myself is that I actually have a struggle with daily things that are every day seem very mundane to me, and I've kind of actively rejected them. But I've also seen now, as I get a little older and a little wiser, how critical that is to just having a consistent life and not letting, to be present. And so I'm kind of focused on that.
I read, speaking of books I read that were really good, a book called Deep Work.
I have that book. I've read the first 2 chapters.
You got to read it. It's fantastic because it actually, it pushes you to realize that it's not about the amount of time that you put into work. It's actually the way that you work that changes things. And so what I took away from that is I need to look at my schedule and set specific time every day to just set time to just think, to just do. Don't look at email. Don't look at social media. Just focus cleanly on a task that you have to do. And it's just helpful, right? Because I think we get so busy that if we don't set time to just work and think, then we're just going to be in meetings all day. So that's something I try to actively do, just find an hour or 2 a day to just do some thinking and some actual work. So
that's awesome. So what's next for Curate Co? What's the long-term goal? If you don't mind sharing, what would you like to see happen?
I would love to see us also open up a shop in either Chicago or Ann Arbor.
Or Berlin.
Berlin.
I
was like, is this a small town that I don't know of?
Yeah.
Is that next to Hartford?
Yeah. It's
Hartford's pretty cool.
Burlington Co Factory is where that came from.
Hey.
Yeah, so I would say that's long term. For us, it's just to continue to stay innovative and think about different things. We launched this beauty bar concept last month. Yeah. And it's really adapting to what we see our customers are gravitating towards. So we saw that beauty and care, like personal care, was a big pull. And so as we were analyzing the business, we said, this makes sense to expand this out and fully flesh this out in a way that our customers would love. And so for us, it's just to continue to stay dynamic, to respond to our customer needs and whatever that looks like. And hopefully we're able to execute on that.
Yeah.
Are you still consulting?
No.
What do you do right now?
I work for the Archdiocese of Chicago.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Totally different. Did not expect that to be the thing I would go do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can I have you consult
please.
Rhino at some point?
Please, yeah,
Okay,
I'd love
cool.
to. I'd love to. Yeah.
He would love, honestly, that's something he wants to do on the side too.
Yeah.
I love. I think of my purpose that I wrote when I was in college. Just at some point, it was to help people, teams, and organizations become the best versions of themselves, right? And so the only way you do that is you ask questions, and you kind of have to realize that the people already have the answers. You just have to ask the right questions to kind of get them there. And so it's just fun to be able to help people do that.
That's cool. So, okay. This has been great. I think I could probably go for a while, but I'll wrap it up now. How can people find more about you, and where can they go to interact with Curate Co? Physically?
Yeah.
Tell us.
So we have a
find
shop downtown on South Street. So definitely
Where on South Street?
116 West South Street. So definitely check that out. I also say our Instagram is really fun to get inspiration. So we're at Curate & Co. KZoo. If you want to check us out online, it's curateandcompany.com. You can also shop our products beforehand and then come in store as well and see them.
Yeah, but I would say come to the shop. I think like you said is don't come in trying to just buy. So we don't want
local.
Yeah, we don't want to just to buy something from us, right? We want you to come and see if it's lives up to the expectations that we set. And whatever feeling you feel, let Kevin know.
Yeah. Nice.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I think that's it for us. Super appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Great. Thank you.